AITA for buying a $50,000 guitar for $4,000 and refusing to sell it back when the buyer found out the real value? This happened a while back. My wife and I still talk about it every once in a while. She's on my side and most of our friends and family are. However, when it happened, it was like WW3 between us and her coworkers and others. Here we go. I've been playing the guitar for 22 years. I know guitar values and whatnot very well. I'm very into the guitar market. At my wife's old company, she was hanging out with coworkers one day after work, and she mentioned that I play guitar. A coworker who I guess is very popular at work said that his dad passed away, and he was selling his dad's things. His dad had a guitar and asked my wife if I'd be interested in it. My wife texted me, and I said to have him send me the info on the guitar and the price. The next day, he texted me the pics and price. It was a 1952 Telecaster in mint condition. He had the original receipts, which was crazy. That's how I knew the date. I asked what he wanted for it, and he said he looked up Telecasters online and he thinks $4,000 is fair. I texted back, I'll take it for $4,000, and went to pick it up. The guitar had no sentimental value to him at all. Here's the issue at hand. The guitar is worth approximately $50,000 depending on the buyer, and I knew it. When I got the guitar, I told my wife the price and what it was worth. She was floored. Fast forward 2 weeks, her coworker tells my wife he just found out what the guitar was actually worth from a family friend and wanted it back. She said, well, he really likes the guitar and he knew it was worth $50,000, which is why he was floored you offered it to him for $4,000. He really likes it and I doubt he will sell it back, but you can ask. Probably not the smartest thing for her to say, but she was caught off guard, and it's not her fault or problem. He contacted me and asked to buy it back. I said that it's not for sale. He then said I scammed him and he was going to sue me and take my wife to HR for being a part of the scam. Which was nuts, but he actually did contact HR. They were cool about it and said it's not their problem, it's between him and me. Over the next few months, he made things very uncomfortable for my wife at work. He would bug her constantly about it. She eventually had to go to HR for harassment, and they actually let him go. She complained twice, and he was warned and didn't stop. He's contacted me several times about it, so I got a restraining order for harassment too. I blocked him too. I haven't heard from him in about a year. AITA? Update. Well, this post blew up way beyond what I was expecting. It looks like I was voted not the asshole. There's over 5,000 comments. I couldn't read them all, but I did read a lot. Just to clear up some things. I left some things out because I didn't want it to influence opinions, and really wanted it to be about me buying a guitar at significantly lower market value versus the people in the story. I did include the fact that the guy was harassing my wife at work, not to make the guy sound bad, but because I thought it was relevant to the story. Here's some specific details I chose not to include. The guy and his dad were not close at all, so those people saying he was grieving and I took advantage of him, that is 100% not the case. When I went to get the guitar, he was telling me he hadn't talked to his dad in 6 years and was actually annoyed he had to deal with a funeral. The dad bought the guitar new and never played it. Luckily, it was stored in a closet and not in a basement or attic. There's no issue with the wood or electronics. It plays like a dream, and I couldn't be happier. I am not selling the guitar to the son or anyone. It will be with me for a long time. I'm in my 30s, so maybe in 30 years it will find a new home. I would have maybe considered giving the guy more money or giving him one of my guitars to sell on his own, but I decided not to do that after he left a terrible voicemail on my phone the day he found out the real value. He demanded it back like he was entitled to an object he sold fair and square, called me a POS, called my wife a POS, and said he would do bad things if I didn't sell him the guitar back. And to those people who say they would have told the guy the real value, that's a load of horse shit. If you went to a garage sale, estate sale, and saw an item worth $5,000 priced at $50, there's not a snowball's chance in hell you would walk up to the homeowner and tell them they mispriced it. You'd buy the item and then tell all your friends and family what a great score you got. Don't even kid yourself like you wouldn't do that. I don't feel bad about buying an awesome guitar at a steal of a price. I was curious what others would think, and it looks like I'm not the asshole, so thank you, Reddit. I can play the guitar with zero guilt now. Not like I felt guilty before, but now my feelings are justified. AITA for breaking a patient's confidentiality to tell my friend that her boyfriend is HIV+. This has been eating me up inside for the past week, so I'm going to lay it all out here. One of my closest friends, Amanda, started dating a guy, Matt, about 2 months ago. I'd met him twice before, and he seemed pretty seedy to me, but she was happy. So overall, I was happy for them. I work at our local hospital. I won't divulge too much about my role, but I am not involved in providing medical care, i.e., I am not a physician or nurse, but I do have access to patient records and am permitted to look through them under certain circumstances with ethics approval. I came across Matt's chart just over a week ago. I was not snooping. I was explicitly gathering patient information for an approved task, and he was one of the patients in the pile of charts. It's not too much of a coincidence. I was going through 500 patient records, and this is the only nearby hospital. I discovered that Matt was HIV+ from his chart. I was unsure whether Amanda was aware. I wrestled with this in many different directions. Should I mind my own business and not violate confidentiality and risk her contracting the disease? Should I approach him first, even though it's not my place and we've only met twice? Should I go straight to her just to confirm that she knows? Ultimately, I felt an obligation to her as my friend and to her well-being, so I told her. Knowing her, I felt like she was unaware since she is generally extremely risk-averse and something seemed off about this guy. So I felt like approaching him might not accomplish anything. She was shocked to find out about his HIV status and broke up with him. Amanda was thankful to me, but evidently she let him know how she found out, as I was let go from my position 2 days ago. I understood the risk I was taking and was hoping it was a calculated risk, but now I'm wondering if I overstepped by breaking confidentiality. AITA for being pissed at my parents for taking us to Athens, Georgia instead of Athens, Greece? I'm 17F always wanted to go to Greece. I love Greece so much to the point where I taught myself how to speak Greek, both Standard and Cypriot, and I can read ancient Greek. I've read the Iliad, Odyssey, and many other of Homer's books in ancient Greek, and I watch TV, sports, movies, and play video games in Greek. And I got online Greek friends who I do it with in Greek. I've got Greek friends in Athens, Thessaloniki, and Larnaca that I want to meet, so that's why I was so excited when my parents said they would take us on a family vacation to Athens. This would be the first time I would leave the country and go on a plane. This happened during an amazing party, but if it was during the only time we could go to Greece, I would do it, my friends understood. I made a plan of everything I wanted to see in Greece, Meteora, Olympiakos Stadium, Acropolis, Plaka, among other things all over Athens, and if we had time, perhaps Thessaloniki, Sparta, or some other cities. I also made it a priority to go check out universities in Greece, as that's where I want to go. I showed my parents this, and they were like, yeah, sure, you can do that, we don't care. Trip is in February. We fly to Atlanta. I assumed it was a layover. We land, and my parents said we need to get to the hotel and need a rental car. Weird, but whatever, wasn't paying attention. Well, we drive for an hour or so, and I fall asleep in the car, and then we get to Athens, Georgia, and my parents say, hey, we're here, wake up sleepyhead, and I see a sign that says, welcome to Athens, Georgia. My sister starts laughing her ass off, and my dad starts giggling. I asked them if this was a joke, and they said no, that we're going on vacation to Athens, Georgia, to my dad's friend's lake house. I have never been more angry in my entire life. We were at a gas station, and I argued with my parents. They told me I was a disrespectful brat, and that I should be thankful they're taking us on vacation. They said they can't afford to take me to Europe, and this is the best thing they could do. I told they're pieces of shit because I missed my friend's birthday party for this boring-ass trip in the middle of nowhere in Georgia, and this was like some fucked-up joke that everyone knew about but me. My parents, of course, keep screaming at me saying I'm a disrespectful brat, and I told them to go fuck themselves. And I elbowed the car window in my anger several times, breaking it but cutting myself. I ran on a bus going to Atlanta. Parents are telling me to come back. I told them to fuck off, and I called my friend who used to go to my school but goes to university in Atlanta. He picked me up, and I've been at his place with his GF since school got canceled in Missouri not soon after. My parents went from being furious to being worried and are begging me to come back. I told them to fuck off. AITA for telling my wife's friend she is too old and ugly after she repeatedly asked my 19-year-old son to take off his shirt. He was getting uncomfortable. My family had a small get-together at my house. One of my wife's friends was over. She is unmarried. I think she is 45, 47. We aren't too close to her since she lives pretty far away. She was over our house and she started complimenting my son. My son is 19. It starts off innocent, but as time goes on, it gets more and more crossing the line. When we were out on my deck, she starts telling my son to take his shirt off. What's the point of going to the gym if no one will see it? My son is visibly uncomfortable and tries to shut her down. She repeatedly is asking and is getting more aggressive with it. I interject and I'm like, "Hey, Kathy, I think you are a bit too old and ugly for my son." This got her upset really quickly, and she excuses herself to the bathroom and starts crying. My wife goes to comfort her, and then later she leaves. At the end of it, my wife is super angry with me for saying that I should have said, "Hey, Kathy looks like you had too much to drink," or something else. I told my wife that Kathy, BTW, this is not her real name, works a corporate job. She has had training on this and that she knows better. And our son was uncomfortable. He is 18 plus, but he doesn't know how to deal with an adult, let alone someone saying that in our house. I told my wife flat out that if I was to invite a guy friend and he was to ask to see our daughter in a bikini, my wife would have called the police. She says it's different. I tell her that I was way kinder to Kathy than I would have been had a guy said something like that to our daughter, and I told my wife that Kathy needs to apologize to my son before she can ever come into our house again. Overall, I think I was fair if Kathy just said it once and I said that I think I would be the asshole, but the fact she kept repeating it, that's why I said it. And I wanted her to get the message that yes, I am upset, that's why I included the ugly part. AITA for asking my fiancé to pay a bride price? Throw away for obvious reasons. I am not asking your opinion on bride prices. I am asking if I was wrong for doing what I did. My fiancé, 32M, is a white European man. I, 31F, am a black African woman. We've been dating for 7 years. I came to his country to study and have lived and worked here since. Ever since we started dating, he took such an interest in my culture, asked me to teach him my language, culture, and we've even been to visit a few times. He asked me to marry him last year, and I accepted. We were planning our wedding. I mentioned we'd need to account for my family back home. We could have the traditional wedding in my home country and the white wedding in his, since we don't want to ask anyone to fly and get visas, etc. The issue came when I mentioned a bride price needing to be paid, something he scoffed at. To call it a bride price is misleading because there is so much more to it than the money that changes hands. It's our time-honored tradition that blends two families into one, and JT's always something I wanted to do when you got married. I mentioned he knew of marriage customs in my country and that they include a BP. We both work in law, human rights type of fields, so he assumed I would be against a BP. I told him I'm against it being a forced and money-making thing, but I'm asking that he does it BC, I choose it, and I want to honor my parents and culture. He refused, saying it was backwards and extortionate and it would be like he bought me. I assured him that wasn't the case. My parents would charge a tokenistic, symbolic amount. Nothing crazy, just to symbolize us getting together. I said if my parents were to sell me, he couldn't afford me, this set him off in a rage because I somehow insulted him by saying that when what I meant is my parents aren't looking to make money off me, but this is something my people have done for millennia and I don't want to break from tradition. I have said IDK if I'm willing to go ahead with marrying him, if he isn't willing to make the trip to my country and talk to my parents about the Lobola process. He says I'm forcing, manipulating him. I am not. He knew from day one who I was and where I came from. This is what my people do, and I feel for him to label it backwards is Eurocentric BC. He is viewing it from his lens, despite me having explained what it's actually about it. TLDR. My white boyfriend won't pay to honor my culture and our marriage and IDK if I want marry him if he's unwilling. AITA? ETA. There's a lot of misconception and ignorance in the comments. I shall try to clarify. BF and I didn't talk about BP in our specific context. However, he knew from real life and fictional context the marriage customs of my people. I assumed that he, knowing what he knows, would have known the steps necessary for marrying me. Perhaps I was wrong to assume that. This lobola is no affront to him or his upbringing outside of what I view to be a judgment of moral superiority. A lot of your comments are ignorant with thinly veiled racial undertones. I knew coming to a platform with predominantly white users, this was a risk. I ask that you read what you're saying before you post, and ask yourself if you're coming from a position of superiority colored by your beliefs of Africa and Africans. Step outside your worldview. Frankly, my parents are wealthy. They neither need nor plan to get rich off my marriage. They have a demonstrated pattern of behavior that assures me they are reasonable and fair when it comes to this kind of thing. The money is a minuscule, literally like 5%, part of the traditional marriage, but it is a part of it. The other 95% is not monetary and is a beautiful ceremony that blends two families together. My concern is that if he's willing to shun the 95% for the sake of the 5%, what does MT future W this man look like? Culturally, if we do not go through these customs, I am not married and my marriage won't be recognized. The ceremony is a cultural must-have, the wedding ceremony a nice-to-have. My family mean a lot, and my parents have done a lot for me. I disrespect my parents over something that I not only think is a non-issue, but something I agree with. You seem to miss the part where I am willingly consenting to this. Final edit. Logging off. Lobola is something I am unable and unwilling to scrap. I'll talk to him. We shall decide on the future of this relationship. If it's something he is unwilling to partake in, I guess we'll have our answer. Thanks to those of you who were useful in your advice and respectful in your disagreements. Bye. An update is on my profile for those who keep asking. AITA for telling my fiancé I don't like her wedding dress? So my fiancé and I are getting married in 9 months. She's been dress shopping with her girls for months now. She found the dress she loved and bought it and was too excited to keep it a secret. She showed me pics of the bridesmaids' dresses and I told her they were pretty. They match my groomsmen's suits really well. Anyway, she brought her dress out and asked what I thought. I specifically asked her if she wants the God's honest truth and wants me to critique the dress, or if she knows she loves it and just wants to show me. She said she wanted my opinion. She put the dress on and came out of the bathroom, and I would be lying if I said I wasn't a little disappointed. She's a beautiful woman and looks incredible in anything, of course, but the dress completely dwarfed her and didn't really fit the wedding theme she has worked so hard for. She wanted a foresty, magical and whimsical type theme, flower crowns on the bridesmaids, etc. But she chose a super sparkly dress with a huge skirt, which looked nothing like the simply body-hugging sexy dresses she had been repeatedly showing me. She picked basically a huge Disney princess dress, and I just didn't like how it looked at all. I was honest when I told her I didn't like it, and I was surprised she picked it because it just doesn't seem to match her, and I just thought it was too much poof and sparkle. She got really quiet and stormed back upstairs and then stormed out of the house and went to her mom's. Texted me saying she couldn't believe I would say I didn't like it and what a dickhead I am and his blocked number. This is our first major fight, and I'm just so annoyed because I asked if she wanted a real opinion, and she said yes. AITA for telling her I don't like the dress, edit to add, I read my credit card statement. The dress was $9,000. Might help explain the reaction. Oh, you don't like this $9,000 dress? Great, 'cause I can't return it. Probably went through her head. I don't know what to do but sit here and laugh. Is laugh crying a thing? AITA for making my daughter put her feminine hygiene items back from the trolley after she disrespected me in front of others at the supermarket. I am a 43-year-old mother of a 25-year-old daughter who still lives at home with me and my 56-year-old husband, her biological father. For the longest time, she has developed a nasty attitude towards me starting around the age she began puberty. I thought it was a phase, but it continued on into her adulthood. My daughter dropped out of university to do drugs, party, and be promiscuous. I have tried to seek help for and have tried to support her to the best of my abilities. I truly love her, but she is so mean to me. My husband lets my daughter get away with all sorts of things. She is allowed to break curfew. She can talk back to me whenever I ask a simple request. Basically, my husband rewards her behavior, and I am sick of it. My daughter has never had a job in her whole entire life. My husband provides her with an allowance that she blows on materialistic things. She has no concept of saving money even though I have tried to teach. In fact, she tells me to piss off and mind my own business whenever I try to help her. My daughter is dependent on us financially. She believes she is entitled to all we provide for her. I would have cut the umbilical cord a long time ago, but my dearest hubby said that she is not prepared to do that just yet. To add, my daughter does no housework around the house because my husband believes it is the wife's job to do all that. Yesterday, I took my daughter shopping at our local supermarket. My daughter begins putting boxes of tampons, medicine for period pains, junk food like chocolate, and lots of clearance makeup into the trolley. We both line up at the registers and wait. My daughter is standing incredibly close to an older lady in front of us. I told my daughter politely, "Please stand back from her because we need to socially distance ourselves from others." My daughter looked me right at the face, gave me a dirty look, and ignored my reasonable request. I ask her again. My daughter takes a step back, looks at me like I just punched her, sighs, rolls her eyes, and shakes her head. I snap and tell her, "Are you going to pay for your stuff or are you expecting me to pay for it?" She says she has no money, so I cut her off and say, "Well, you can take everything out and put it back on the shelf. Do it now." She asks, "But it is that time of the month and I need these." I said, "Tough luck. Take the food, tampons, medicine, and makeup and put it back. I'm not paying for it. If you do end up making a mess down there, you can learn to wash your own underwear." She reluctantly did as she was told, and I ended up paying for my items. We got home and she cried to her father, and he says I was horrible for not paying for her girl things. She said I embarrassed her in front of everyone, and now my husband is ignoring me. I don't know if I was in the wrong here, but I thought maybe that would teach my daughter a lesson. Was I Tay for now buying her tampons and chewing her out? AITA for telling my mill that the family has a secret group text to mock her adopted daughter? No. My husband grew up with 2 sisters, but when he was a senior in high school, his mom came home from vacation with a baby. Well, call her Katie. Now I have no idea how she managed to get an adoption through so quickly, or how she managed to adopt without her husband's consent, but she was in a foreign country, so maybe things are different over there. FIL was pissed and threatened to divorce her, but she convinced him that it was like her getting a pet and he wouldn't have to do anything. They stayed together and he has a good relationship with Katie, but he would not lift a finger, and my Emil had to bribe him to babysit if she needed someone. And even then, he would just pump her full of sugar and watch as she wrecked the house. He was a great hands-on dad with his other kids. No one in the family likes Katie, who is now 21. She is extremely needy and attention-seeking, talks in baby talk, expects her mom to bankroll her life, and has already switched her major twice because it was too hard, all while never having a job, and MIL literally waiting on her hand and foot. She is also Mill's attack dog, and has done nasty things to me to cheer her mom up. The other day, my husband got a text and was laughing. I glanced down at his phone, which normally wouldn't be an issue, because we have no secrets. It was from File, and it said, "WTF is this outfit?" and had a picture of Emil and Katie leaving to go shopping, but Mill was wearing normal jeans, sweater, boots. So I know he meant Katie because she likes to experiment with fashion. My husband admitted that they, him, his dad, and both sisters, talk about her sometimes, and he let me read through it. FEL has sent multiple candid pictures of her, and in a few she looks drunk. One was captioned, "Just go back where you came from," and there was one that said, "I'm about to leave your mom." And a video of Katie in his bed, screaming at him to get out. She is going to sleep with her mommy, and calling him Mill's fuck buddy. I honestly felt bad for Katie. I don't even like her, but it was sad. They were comparing stories about her and making fun of the way she dresses. I ended up telling Mill, and Phil messaged me that I'm trying to ruin his marriage, but he loves his wife and daughter and was just blowing off steam. One of my SEALs is mad because she says Mill was a sucky mom and they need to vent, but they don't even talk about Mill. And my husband says it was just a joke and I should have stayed out of it. Katie is a lot, but I just felt bad. AITA for hitting my mother-in-law where it hurts? I already know the answer to this. I just want everyone to tell me what a bitch I've been. My daughter was born 3 years ago. After 36 hours in labor, I had a C-section. After I had trouble breastfeeding, my milk never came in properly, and after 2 months of pumping and supplements and praying and crying, we gave up and switched to formula completely. I had my son 3 months ago via section. I tried breastfeeding, but again, it didn't work. I gave up quicker this time, and we are using formula. My Mel has spent the last 3 years crowing about my failures as a mother. All her children were born naturally. She had no trouble breastfeeding. Sections are for quitters. Her body was just made to be a mother. But don't worry, dear, I'm sure you're good at other things. Blah, blah, blah. It's ramped up with the new baby. Every time I see her, which has been a lot, just little passive-aggressive digs at me. My husband has asked her to stop. My FIL told her to stop, but she just plays dumb. For 3 years, I kept quiet to her face, but she made me cry more than once in private. There was a little while, about 2 weeks postpartum, where I went to a seriously dark place and questioned whether she was right, whether I shouldn't have become a mother, and if they would be better off without me. I'm feeling better now, and those feelings aren't all her fault, but she sure didn't help. Important info. My husband has 2 brothers. His mom had a late-term miscarriage of her only daughter, and she always wanted a girl. Anyway, this past weekend they were over for dinner and my husband was feeding the baby. She starts in loudly about how she never needed bottles because she made so much milk, and how she guessed she was just such a natural mother, and how it just seemed so wrong to give a baby formula, and she was such a perfect mother, practically a fertility goddess, and I was such a failure. I'm sleep-deprived and hormonal, and I've put up with this for years, and I just snapped. I said, "At least all my babies are alive." As soon as it came out of my mouth, I wished I could stuff it back in. She got real quiet, and they left pretty quick after without really saying anything. I firmly believe I'm the asshole, but my husband thinks she deserved it after all the pain she intentionally caused me. So tell me, YTA or what? ETA. So I'm really surprised at how all over the board my judgment has been. Thanks to all the other moms who've told me their stories, it makes me feel better about how I'm doing. By all means, I get how mean what I said was. It actually surprised the hell out of me, and I feel ashamed I said it. I definitely need to work on addressing behavior like this from people before it comes to a head like that. Also, I think I'm going to take a break from seeing my mill for a while. It's probably for the best. I'm really sorry to anyone who reads this who has experienced baby loss. I can't imagine your pain, and I know I'm a shitheel. It definitely won't happen again. AITA for telling my son that not everything is about his sexuality. I have a 22-year-old son who came out as gay a few years ago. I'm not gonna lie, it was very hard on my husband. He's not a hateful person, but we do love in a bubble, and it's not something he ever thought he'd be faced with. He did his best to make sure that our son never knew how hard it was on him, and he was nothing but supportive. Still, I'm sure my son knew that it wasn't what his father wanted to hear. So far, he's introduced us to 2 boyfriends, and we had no problem with them, either of them, so this isn't about seeing him with a man. Well, he has a new boyfriend, Jonathan, who I find obnoxious, but I've been trying to bite my tongue. The other day, Jonathan and my son came over to hang out by the pool. My husband disliked Jonathan, and he doesn't do much to hide it, and Jonathan finds my husband too conservative and has made remarks. My husband was laying on a pool chair and asked me to rub more sunscreen on his back, and Jonathan did it because he claims he thought it would be funny. My husband told him to get the fuck out of our house and never touch him again, and my son left without saying much. My son called me later and said his hurtful that was, and he doesn't know if he can forgive his father. I think he's being unfair because I have a 19-year-old daughter, and if her boyfriend did that to me, everyone would think it was bizarre, and we had the right to kick them out. I told my son that not everything is about his sexuality, and he hung up. Obviously, I don't have much perspective, so was that an asshole thing to say? AITA. I called someone a dumbass for taking surf lessons when he can't swim. I teach surf lessons, and we had a new set of people come in, and when we got in the water, he starts freaking out, wailing and screaming and holding on to the board. I asked him what's wrong, and he told me he can't swim. I thought this was some joke, so I said, "Haha, very funny, now paddle." And again, he's freaking out and just hanging onto the board, not swimming or anything. That's when I found out he can't swim, and he was serious. I drag him to shore, and he asks if he can just lay on the board, and I can just bring him over so he can wait for a wave. I was pissed that I'm wasting my time on this when I had a class to teach. Listen, dumbass. You need to know how to swim to go surfing, just like you need to know how to swim for water polo, scuba diving, and many other activities. If you really can't swim, then go away. I'm done wasting time here. He leaves, and there was a massive argument that I can hear from the beach where he's yelling at our staff, demanding a refund and other shit. He later writes really bad reviews about us on Yelp, saying very unprofessional, unwilling to assist me in learning how to surf, which our staff responded back with, "Sir, you didn't know how to swim. That's a prerequisite to surfing, something that should be self-evident." AITA, for refusing to clean the otter habitat in our zoo every day for a pregnant co-worker. 22 Mauer, and this co-worker just recently got hired as first-time zookeepers in the past couple months. She seemed nice enough when I met her, and we didn't talk a whole lot as our work didn't overlap. She's being trained on small mammals, whereas I'm a swing keeper, basically a junior keeper who fills in as an assistant as needed. But a couple weeks ago, she told me that she needs help cleaning the otter dens and wants me to do it every day for the foreseeable future instead of her, which, from my limited experience in that enclosure, was not news I was thrilled to hear. I asked her why I'd need to do that every day. That's part of her job. She told me that she's pregnant and that the smell in there is making her sick. I said, "They're otters, that smells makes everyone feel sick," but she insisted. I said, "No, why should I have to spend half an hour in there every single day on top of everything else I already have to do?" But she got mad and I reluctantly gave it a go that day. It was a miserable 30 minutes. The next day she insisted again, but I put my foot down. I told her I hate the otter smell too, and I had other things to do besides do her job for her. I said I'd even be willing to help with the cleaning for any other small mammals, but not the otters. But she insisted I help with the otters and said I was being insensitive to her needs. In the end, we got in a bit of a fight, and our supervisor got involved and basically took her side and asked me if I could spare some time each day to clean the otter dens, and that this was part of giving reasonable accommodation for her pregnancy, which I just didn't think was fair. And now the co-worker won't speak to me. AITA. If I lay off an employee who has a sick daughter when our work pays for our health insurance, got pulled into my boss's office right when I got in. Turns out our company is laying off a bunch of people. Since I'm in charge of a team of 5 people, myself included, I have to choose the 2 people who are getting laid off. I have to make this choice by 3 p.m. and tell HR so they can get all the paperwork and stuff done before the end of the day. One is a no-brainer. She's just started working here a month ago and is less experienced than everyone else. The second choice is harder. The guy I'm thinking of has to leave early a lot now because his daughter is sick and in the hospital. Because of her illness, he is also much less focused and gets behind on his work. I told him I understood he's going through a rough time now, but that I needed him to focus and to not leave work early as much anymore. But it's not easy to say no in the moment when he's rushing out the door because his daughter just had a medical complication and he needs to be there. So I didn't push the issue anymore. We were able to manage our workload with the people we had, and well, family is important. But if I lay off another employee instead of him, that just leaves me with 2 employees and a guy that's not always there. I don't think we would be able to stay on our tight schedule, especially since I often need people to work overtime and late into the night. If we don't get our work done on time, I know all the blame is going to be on me, and with them laying people off, it doesn't seem like a good idea. Look like I'm underperforming compared to everyone else. Still, I know he probably needs the job, and since our work pays for our insurance, his daughter's treatment might be affected. I don't know how it works exactly, but it's probably not good. Edit. Asked HR about FMLA. They said it didn't apply since we've never had over 50 employees. Left them a message about some other benefit stuff you guys mentioned. Waiting to hear back. AITA for firing a female employee who posts provocative underwear pictures on her Instagram. I, M29, run a successful event planning business that I started with my ex-wife about 7 years ago. When my ex-wife and I divorced, she also divorced the business, and I then employed about 9 people to work for me. We now have offices and we have a tight group of employees who are almost like family to me now. About 6 months ago, one of my employees told me she was pregnant, and as a result was going to leave the business to be a full-time stay-at-home mom. I had no issue with this, but it meant I had to find a new employee to take her place. I interviewed a lot of people before finding Olivia, who I went on to employ. Olivia has lots of experience and is absolutely fantastic at her job, The clients love her and she's really in tune with what the client's needs and desires are. The nature of our work is to build a rapport with our clients, which sometimes means social media is added by clients. For my other employees, this has never been an issue. They post respectable pictures of their families or traveling. It's never been a cause for concern. Olivia, on the other hand, thinks herself as a bit of an amateur underwear model and posts these pictures on her Instagram in very provocative poses. Usually I wouldn't have an issue with this, but I don't want clients seeing them and immediately looking down on my business. I have Olivia a warning about a month after she started working for me and told her to stop posting pictures like that as it was bad for the image of the company. She said okay, and for a while she did, but then after a month she started posting them again even more than she did before. When quarantine began, we were extremely busy as a lot of clients were calling worried their events were going to be canceled, and during this time Olivia was posting a provocative picture once every few days. Out of pure stress, I fired her and told her I didn't want her to work for me anymore, and she said she was going to sue me for discrimination and claimed I was being sexist, which I definitely wasn't. The rest of my employees are threatening to leave in solidarity with Olivia. AITA. AITA for canceling an Uber Eats order after it was at my door because the driver was being difficult. I 19 mem ordered McDonald's through Uber Eats yesterday. It was processed, and the driver was on the way to my house. As it got on my street, I noticed that the automatic location thingy accidentally put the house right next to mine. So I messaged the Uber driver to correct the mistake. She must have not seen it in time because she was walking up to the other house. I opened my door and called her to let her know that it was my house. She stood there for like 3 minutes telling me that it was for the house next over, and I told her that it was a mistake and the wrong address was put in. She then cautiously walked over to her car while keeping her eyes on me to check her phone. There was someone else in that car who I could only assume was her, looked about 20, daughter. They were whispering to each other for like 5 more minutes. They were talking in a foreign language, but from the sound of it, her daughter seemed really nervous for whatever reason. Then she started walking up to my door sideways so that her shoulder was pointing towards me, very fucking slowly. The whole time she was creeping up to my door, her daughter was calling out to her mom every time she took 4 steps. Okay, I get that safety is important, but I told her like 5,000 times to just check her phone for the message that I sent to her phone to confirm that it was the wrong house. When she got to my door, she handed me the bag, but then pulled it back and said, "Wait, can you tell me the confirmation code?" Or something like that. I asked her what a confirmation code was, and she said, "You tell me." I then asked her where it was, and she said it was on the phone. Yeah, no fucking shit. I asked her where again, and she said, in the app. I told her I'd send her another message from my phone since we obviously both didn't know where the confirmation code was. She then told me no, and that she needed to see what the confirmation code was. The whole time this was going on, her daughter was pleading with her mom to come back to the car, and finally I just said to keep the fucking food and slammed the door. I called the Uber helpline to get a refund and tell them about the ordeal. My GF said that I was being an asshole to that lady since it wasn't her fault that the address registered the wrong address. She also said I just cost that lady gas and the 2 separate companies money because I canceled my order. I can understand that, but that whole situation took like 30 fucking minutes, on top of waiting for the food to be prepared, and her trip over, and I wasn't going to wait any longer for cold food. AITA? AITA for telling my sister the only reason her BF is with her is because of his fetish. My sister, 25F, and I, 22F, grew up in the deep south. My dad is almost 400 lbs, and my mom is close. I grew up as a fat kid, however, when I started college and moved to a very fitness-friendly state, CO. I lost a lot of weight. I started to care more about my looks. I became a personal trainer last year and got a rhinoplasty recently to fix my crooked humped nose. My sister decided to move up with me. My sister was not very approving of my weight loss, nor was she happy I did a lot to change my appearance. While we get along wonderfully most of the time, we still have fights about her thinking I'm vain. My sister's weight is around $300. I have offered her help, however, she just tells me life isn't about looks. Frankly, I don't care what she looks like. I just want her to be healthy and confident. My sister sometimes acts out at me a lot, especially when it comes to guys. When we have gone to bars, people can be cruel, saying, "What your sisters couldn't tell," or outwardly paying more attention to me. I defend her when I see it, but it still hurts her confidence. She has cried to me multiple times about dating, asking why can't anyone pet her for who she is. In John, my boyfriend of 2 years, cheated on me. My sister told me that maybe he left me because I was too vain and high maintenance. I ignored her. Around the time of the breakup, she started dating a guy, and I was happy for her. However, the guy gave off some weird vibes. The way he looked at my sister when she ate and making plans when my sister and I are supposed to do healthy activities. Since then, my sister has gained a massive amount of weight and has become more hostile towards me. Her boyfriend buys her large quantities of unhealthy food and insists that she needs to eat more. He is weirdly touchy with her and often dismisses things she says. They don't talk and just watch TV. She hasn't met his friends or family yet also. She complains how he never posts about her on social media. About a month ago, I had a friend over. This friend is interested in fetishes, and they recognized my sister's BF from a feeder site. I didn't want to bring it up with my sis because that didn't seem like it was my place, but it worried me greatly. I recently downloaded multiple dating apps, and my sister, like any sister, wants to see who I matched with. I showed her, and she immediately said, "The only reason I got these matches is because I'm shallow." She then told me I might be more successful if I stopped worrying so much about my looks, and said that her boyfriend loves her for her personality, not her looks. And girls who look really good get men who want them just for their looks. This angered me to the point where I told my sis that her boyfriend is a feeder and he doesn't love her. If he did, he would put her health over his fetish and actually want to introduce her to the people in his life. My sister has refused to talk to me for a week so far and calls me a horrible person, along with my parents joining in. AITA? I work in publishing. Mom keeps giving my contact info to aspiring writers. I am rude to them. I am a senior editor at a publishing house. First piece of advice I got on being hired was not to tell people I work in publishing, because they'll ask me to look at their manuscript. I thought this was a joke. But the first time I told someone that I was in publishing, you get one guess what they said. My mother sees this as a bonus and wants to brag to everyone and their dog about my daughter, the publisher, and my daughter who could find the next J.K. Rowling, and my daughter who can part the Red Sea with only a green pen. She finishes her boasting with giving them my contact information. If I've asked her to stop it once, I've asked her to stop it 1,000 times. And yet I'm still getting contacted by the nephew of my mother's butcher or my cousin's girlfriend's cousin, saying Mum gave them my information so they could show me their work. I then tell them to get lost. I even have a template that I send back to most of them saying that there is a process in place for a reason, along with an outline of this process. If they get pushy, which they always do, I respond that the reason the process exists is so people like them don't waste my time, as I could be using this time to find a manuscript actually worth publishing, which theirs clearly isn't, because if it was, they could go through the regular channels like everyone else, rather than contact me directly and request special treatment. In conclusion, I am not kind to these people. The consequence of this is that I'm gradually ostracizing my mother from her social circles, as people have begun to blame her for me reaming out their acquaintance. Mum has asked that I be nicer. I've asked her to stop putting me in this position. Mum claims that she stopped giving my info to people. And these are just the stragglers, but they just keep coming, so I'm not fully convinced that she stopped giving out my information. I told Mum that if they get pushy after they receive the template, I reserve the right to give them everything I've got, but Mum has said that I'm being really unfair, both to her and the aspiring authors, and that I'm ruining her reputation, so I need to stop being so rude. I said I will deal with them however I feel is appropriate, and this wouldn't happen if she didn't give my info out. She says she learned her lesson, so I need to stop. I said I'll stop when people stop using her as a reference. She says that I'm enjoying humiliating and upsetting both these people and her, and that the next time she hears from me, she's expecting an apology. AITA, Edit in regards to people saying that I may be costing us potentially valuable authors. If the material can stand up on its own, then they can go through the regular process as we will be able to identify good writing. If they don't trust that we can identify good writing, then they should not be working with us. If they do trust us but want to skip the line anyway, then they are not someone we want to work with, as this suggests that they want special treatment, which will not end with me reading their manuscript and is likely to be a recurring theme throughout working with them. AITA for not respecting my coworker's peanut allergy. We have a new employee I will call Heather. I have candy dish on my desk, which has various types of candy in it. Right now, I happen to have the little Reese's peanut butter cups. Heather noticed my candy dish and said, "You know, I'm allergic to peanuts." I said I was not aware of her peanut allergy, but I did have some other kinds of candy in my dish without peanuts if she wanted any. She said, "You don't seem to get it. I could die." I said, "Yes, I have heard that can happen sometimes." I said that at the time I purchased the candy for my dish, she was not employed by our company yet, and next time, I would be sure not to buy candy with peanuts. She then said, "Don't you think it's insensitive to keep that death-inducing candy sitting on your desk? You're not respecting my peanut allergy." I said I did not think it was insensitive, because all she needed to do was not take any of it. She told me I needed to get rid of my candy, and I told her no. I said, "We have employer-sponsored health insurance. If you know you will die if you come in contact with something as common as peanuts, I suggest you get an EpiPen." She went to Human Resources and basically told them I was putting peanut butter candy on my desk to harass and bully her because of her peanut allergy. I got a lecture from HR and was directed to never bring anything containing peanuts into the office again. I definitely think she is an asshole, but I am not entirely sure about myself. Edit. A lot of people are talking about airborne peanut allergens. I don't think it's that kind of peanut allergy because she was standing right next to my candy dish the entire time she was arguing with me. Also, she didn't correct me when I said that as long as she didn't eat any of the peanut candy, it wouldn't be a problem for her. Also, when I talked with HR, they did not say anything about an airborne peanut allergy. I know I wasn't nice, and I am not saying I was not an asshole. I do want to say if I thought she was in any actual danger, I would remove the candy right away. One more edit. I don't know if it makes a difference, but my candy dish primarily had non-peanut candy. Kit Kat, Milk Duds, Whoppers, Rollos, and then Reese's Cups. It all came together in the same bag like a Halloween candy mix. Then I added milk chocolate Dove candies, no nuts. We are literally talking about no more than 3 Reese's Cups in the candy dish, not an entire dish full of Reese's. Update. Today I went to the HR lady to discuss me being the only person instructed not to bring peanuts to the office. The HR lady said, "I owe you an apology. We should have done our due diligence before we said that, and we shouldn't have singled you out. At this time we have no reason to limit anyone from bringing peanuts to the office." I asked her, "What about Heather's allergies?" She kind of rolled her eyes and said, "I really can't talk about her private health information. All I can say at this time is that I haven't seen any evidence that supports the need to limit any employee's exposure to peanuts. Going by the evidence we have, Heather will be just fine, and that's all I can say about it." AITA for telling my sister that she should have aborted my niece when she had the chance. I grew up in a single-parent household with my mother and my half-sister Casey, who is 7 years younger than me. My mother struggled with drug abuse for the majority of her life, and as a result, I have no clue who my father is. Casey's father was also heavily into drugs and only stuck around for 3 years. I basically raised Casey because when my mom wasn't at work, she was either gone for days on end or holed up in her bedroom, the bathroom doing drugs with whoever her boyfriend was at the time. I am now 31 and have no desire to have children after spending much of my youth caring for Casey. Casey unfortunately followed in my mother's footsteps in that she began excessively drinking, smoking, partying, etc. She enrolled in a university that's known for being a party school, but dropped out during her first year after getting pregnant with my niece. 14 weeks into Casey's pregnancy, we learned that the baby would likely be born with intellectual and physical disabilities. I am pro-choice and discussed abortion as an option with Casey, who at the time refused and assured me that she would love her baby no matter what disability she was born with. My niece is now 4 years old and is nonverbal with pretty severe cognitive delays and motor sensory issues. My mother has been sober for about 5 years and has since come around to help out Casey with my niece. She feels bad about our poor upbringing and as a result enables Casey to continue partying and being an irresponsible parent. Casey is hardly ever around while my mother is left alone with my niece. She's pretty much become my niece's 24/7 caretaker. Both my mom and sister have asked that I help babysit from time to time, but I've politely declined because I know nothing about caring for special needs children. I also work a lot, so I don't see how they think I would be able to do this. Recently, I learned that my mother is planning to move a few states away as her boyfriend would like to be closer to his family, meaning she will no longer be around to help take care of my niece. Now, Casey has asked that I become my niece's godmother and that I move back to our hometown and in with her to help out. I declined because I know that what she really means is that she would like me to become my niece's primary caretaker. She then asked to compromise by having me pay for a home care aide and for assisted living for when my niece turns 18. Again, I refused. My husband and I both have well-paying jobs, so technically we could afford it, but I am sick of everyone rewarding Casey for her poor choices. This resulted in a screaming match between her and I where, in the heat of the moment, I told Casey that she should have gotten an abortion if she knew she was unwilling to step up and be a mother to a child with special needs. Now I am receiving daily texts from both her and my mother stating how terrible of a person I am, and that if I truly cared about our family, that I would help out. Am I the asshole? Edit. I do plan on calling CPS. The only reason I haven't done so is because my mother has actually taken very good care of my niece. My mother's boyfriend is also very experienced with caring for special needs children due to the nature of his job. AITA for agreeing with a girl when she said she is ugly and fat. We have a girl here in our swimming team who has very low self-esteem, to the point that she is constantly calling herself slow, stupid, ugly, short, fat, dark, single, unloved, basically anything negative. Every time she does that, we would assure her with something like, "No, you are not," insert word, "you are wonderful," and things like that so that she can feel better about herself. I may sound like one mean bitch, but really, it is quite tiring sometimes to have someone saying something good about another person, and this girl would make it all about her self-esteem issue. We were having a Zoom chat with the team to catch up with each other when I mentioned that my brother is engaged. We may not see a wedding anytime soon, but this is good news to share nevertheless. The other girls were like either asking me to say congratulations to my brother on their behalf or commenting jokingly about how jealous they are. My brother is very good looking. One even wanted to throw a surprise party on the couple. And then this girl, she came in to dampen the mood by saying how lucky my brother is, unlike her who is not liked by any boys because she is ugly and fat. The atmosphere turned a little awkward as she kept saying negative things about herself. I kind of said, "Yups, couldn't agree more." And it became even more awkward. She then started to throw a temper at me for being a bitch when all I did was to agree with what she said. The chat ended shortly, and my friends were split between saying I shouldn't have said that and those who agree with me that we are tired of her shit already. What is your take, Reddit? AITA for upgrading my ticket, knowing that my sister expected me to help take care of her kids on the flight? My sister and I live in the same city, but our parents moved to another country for retirement. They flew us out for their anniversary. Our parents buy all of us tickets on the same flight. My sister has 2 kids, a 6-month-old and a 5-year-old. She is currently separated from her husband, so she would have to handle 2 children by herself on a 10-hour flight. Or so I thought. She calls me up a week or so beforehand and asks me if I will be willing to help her take care of her kids on the flight, and something about taking shifts so we can both sleep. I tell her that I wasn't comfortable with that, but she says, "Nephew loves you so much, so we can work something out on the flight," and hangs up. I was pissed. I didn't sign up for mid-flight babysitting. I called my airline office and asked if they had any business class seats available. They said yes, and I upgraded using a mix of points plus money. The upgrade cost me $50 out of pocket, the rest covered by my frequent flyer miles, and it was money well spent to be able to sleep. I get to the airport, check in, and wait around for my sister to show up. She does, and I eventually tell her that I upgraded. She didn't seem too happy. She still sends me little screenshots of how important family is and how we should care about them. I mean, the only reason why I upgraded was because she expected me to babysit, and I didn't give her a heads up. And for everyone that said I didn't tell her I didn't want to do it, I did. I did tell her over that phone call I didn't want to do it. She does have a history of dumping her kids with me, and I didn't want to spend 10 hours on the plane with them, only to spend another week with them in a foreign country, where I did babysit them while she went sightseeing for me time. AITA for wanting to play COD on Christmas instead of spending time with my wife and kids. My birthday is on Christmas Day. I have always spent my birthday celebrating Christmas and never doing anything I want. My son is 3 and my daughter is 6 mo. I spend a lot of time with them and my wife and barely see my friends anymore. This Christmas, I just want to play COD with the boys. They're all going to be play COD on Christmas, my birthday, and I don't want to miss out. They are never online at the same time. My wife is incredibly angry with me and wants to throw my new Xbox out the window. I'm angry because I just want to play COD with the boys on my birthday. AITA. Edit. Okay, I'm getting flamed here, and I feel like TA, but I still don't think it's a crazy ask. I've never really celebrated my birthday. I was lucky if anyone other than my brother said the words happy birthday to me. My mom was super religious and made us spend every Christmas at church from 8 a.m. 8 p.m. The only acknowledgement I ever got from my family was a cake after dinner and a pack of socks once. I left home the day after my high school graduation, and that's when I met my boys that I mentioned in my post. We've been everywhere together, have literally saved each other's lives, and they are my brothers. They've always made me feel like my birthday was actually my birthday and not just Christmas. My wife has done this too, but not to the extent that the boys have. Also, we haven't gotten together since before my son was born. We all live in different states and never see each other anymore. Edit 2. Okay, I was not planning on playing all day. I planned on opening presents with the family, then hopping on with the boys around noon. I get what everyone is saying, but I still don't think it's a big ask. Family time is incredibly important, but I happen to think that COD with the boys is too. Edit 3. Thanks for the input, everyone. To clarify a few things, I will not be helping with dinner. I never do, and it's for the best. My wife and I agree. I spend a lot of time with my family. I always wanted to give them the dad I never had. My dad is still around, but was a drunk and has a new family now. I'm very close with my son, and hopefully I'm just as close with my daughter once she's a little older. My wife is convinced that the boys don't like her. We've been together a total of 10.5 years, and she's always said that they feel like she stole me away from them. This is not true, and they have never indicated this. When I do get to play, I don't shirk my responsibilities. I always do what I have to, but mostly just play on the rare occasion that I get the house to myself. What I'm asking for is uninterrupted time with the boys. I haven't even thought of asking for this before. Doesn't seem to matter how long to my wife. She doesn't want me online at all. AITA for publicly calling my father a coward and embarrassing him for leaving me with my Jehovah's Witness mother while he escaped. I grew up in basically a cult. When I was 9, my father got a divorce from my mom and eventually moved out to another state. He would come down and see me, and my mom made it difficult as she could to facilitate our relationship. He remarried when I was 15 and didn't even try to get custody of me after I asked. I cut him off for a while because I felt that he abandoned me completely with my psychotic mother. I'm now 19 and I've gone no contact with my mother. I stayed for a few months with my father after I moved out at 18 but got my own place shortly after college started. My father has tried for a while to re-establish a relationship, but I'm not really up for it. I see him occasionally for dinner or holidays, but other than that, I don't really engage with him. I find him as bad as my mother because he left me with her. Earlier this year, I was tagged in Facebook post by my father's wife, wishing my father a happy birthday. It was also apparently a pregnancy announcement. She had the nerve to say my father was an amazing man and father and mentioned me by name. I ended up replying, I don't consider this man a good father. He's a coward who left me with an evil mother while he created a new family. He's going to run out on you and your kid like he did with me. He's truly a terrible human being. It caused a bit of drama, and his wife ended up deleting the post entirely. I have been since contacted by members of his wife's family saying that they had no idea my father was that kind of man. I ignored the messages. My father and his wife both tried contacting me, which I've refused to reply to. Their child was born with severe health issues, but I haven't met her yet. My father has broken down crying and apologized a few times over the past year for leaving me with my mother. He claims he was abused by my mother and didn't know how to deal with her. But I was the child who needed protecting, not him. I told him as such, and I have no plans to forgive him. AITA? WIBTA. If I told hubby I want kids within 2 years or goodbye? My hubby, 41 Mares, and I, 33F, have been married for only 2 years, but we have had some conflicting views that have emerged since then. I want children. He's unsure. Not the case when we got married. Both wanted around 3 children. I'm willing to bring it down to 1 now. We argue about this a lot, but have a pretty good marriage overall. Recently, something major happened with my family, health scare, and I realized that my husband is not capable of providing the physical or emotional support that it may take to raise a child. He's lazy and has a tendency to get touchy, but I'm okay with that up until a point. Not only do I not want to change him if he doesn't want to, but I also don't want him to regret making a major decision just to make me happy or walk out on our child. I'm pretty stable and will be sad if we ended, but I'm okay to do what it takes to build the family I want. He does have some abandonment issues as a result of his parents basically walking out on him as a child, and we did move really fast in our relationship, house, car, marriage, etc. So he's a little overwhelmed and confused about whether he wants more responsibilities. We are working on things with a therapist, but she anticipates it will take years before he feels secure enough to have children given his reluctance to admit such problems. WIBTA. If I told him I want to have a baby within 2 years, but if he doesn't want to, we should go our separate ways? AITA. Want a baby? Husband unsure. Should I give him an ultimatum? Update. Thank you. I've decided against the ultimatum. I think I didn't explain it well enough in my original post, but he has not ever said that he does not want kids, just not sure anymore. We did and do communicate about this, just oftentimes it ends in frustration. We diligently go to couples therapy each week because of this change of mind and other things, and our therapist has struggled to get a straight answer out of him. It's not that he's this horrible human being that is incapable of being a father. It's just that he shows selfish tendencies like how I probably did at 20, except that he's 41 YO. It's not that I saw and realized he was this emotionally broken man and decided to take advantage of it. We both have our traumas, and he carries himself well and felt that he addressed everything earlier in his life, which is why he said he was ready to marry and have children with me. We did discuss it thoroughly, including which parental techniques we would use. So, yes, it's been difficult and shocking, but I love him very much. I have mentioned that I would let him take some time to figure it out, but I don't know when that time should be up. We've also agreed that if he decides no, that we will divorce, but I'm afraid it's enabled him to hang in maybe for too long. Anyways, I haven't decided what to do. I do love and care for him and worry most of all because I am the main breadwinner, but I will not simply walk out on him. I think we may need to part ways, which is why I want to be sure that I am not having isolated and biased thoughts. That's it. I still find reading all your comments very helpful. AITA for burning my mom's diaries, letters, and writings because I don't want anything to do with her instead of giving them to my siblings. You can probably guess that I had a strained relationship with my mother. She had an affair while married to my dad, and she ended up leaving my dad for her affair partner. My dad was a good man before the affair, but he took it hard and allowed it to destroy him. I was left to play son and parent to him while my mother started a new family. It was hard to watch her play mom to her new children and pretend like I didn't exist. I might occasionally get a call from her, but she was so busy raising her new kids that she didn't have time for me. It was also hard to understand why those kids had so much more than me, we were poor, and why she was okay with that. As I got older, teens, she did try to reestablish a relationship with me, but I wasn't interested. She was still trying to mend fences when she died last year, but I will at least give her credit for trying. She tried very hard to have a relationship with me, but my heart was too hardened for that to be possible. One of the things she left for me was her diaries from the time she was a teenager. She also left me some letters she had kept over the years and some writings. Her hope was that I would read them and get to know her better. She wasn't expecting me to forgive her, but it was her way of trying to make up for the years when we had little contact. My siblings knew about this and asked if they could make copies once I was done with them. I didn't promise them anything. Those diaries sat in my study home office for many months. I didn't want to read them, but I felt like I needed to do something. It was a friend of mine that suggested I burn them as a catharsis, which is what I decided to do. I went over to his place one weekend, and we burned all of it. He was right. It did make me feel better. I feel like I now can be done with her forever. When my siblings found out about it, they were upset. They told me that I had no right to do it, and if I didn't want the diaries, I should have given them away. But I told them that they were mine to do with as I pleased, and I had every right to burn them if I wanted. My wife said she agreed with them and thought my decision was spiteful. She said she felt like I might have even wanted to do it so my siblings could not have the diaries as a way of punishing them. She also feels like it could have been an opportunity for healing as a family that is now lost. My wife bases her opinions on the fact that I didn't discuss my plan, with which she thinks is because I knew she'd urge me not to do it. I don't agree with her take. I did this because I felt like this is what I needed to do to move on from this situation. But AITA for freaking out when told I've sheltered my son? My son, 15, has a severe allergy to the sun. We live in a very hot and sunny place. I don't have the money to move before anybody suggests. His allergy makes it hard for him to do regular kid things. He's had to be homeschooled and, as a result, does not have many friends. His young cousins will visit and spend time with him, and so will his grandparents. But obviously his relationships with them are very different from if he had other 15-year-old friends. He used to spend time with some of the kids on the street, but as they got older, they stopped wanting to visit. My son, expectedly, doesn't really act like a typical 15-year-old boy. He's very quiet and sensitive and is pretty behind on movies, games, TV shows, etc. We have a house computer, but he doesn't spend a lot of time on it because 1, he shares with me, and 2, he has limited screen time because it's very easy, as a kid in his circumstances, to spend all day online and not do anything else. We do spend a lot of time watching movies and playing board games together, and he is of course allowed to read and game, even if the tech is a bit out of date. Anyway, he actually loves his life. That's why I'm not asking if there's anything wrong with the way I've raised him. His dad couldn't handle being a father, especially not under our son's circumstances. I don't hold that against him. We've kept in contact over the years, although he made a point not to want to see our son and confuse him. My ex asked if we could try catching up recently, with son, and so we've been Skyping as often as we can. Today he called privately and said our son acts a bit strange and socially awkward for a teenage boy, and questioned if I sheltered him too much. I guess I'm a bit more sensitive about this than I thought I was, because I said he's perfectly normal, and he said there's nothing wrong with it, he just acts a bit weird. I said that he hasn't been in his shoes and he can't judge him for his behavior. He said he wasn't judging him, he was more concerned about my parenting. I said he should be concerned about his own, and hung up. Now I'm afraid I'm becoming a dictator, freaking out on people when they criticize my parenting. I always hated people who can't take criticism or realize their faults. I'm afraid I'm becoming a bad person and a bad mother. I really care about what my ex thinks, and I was happy to start having a relationship again. And not it's like I've ruined it. AITA for not wanting to compromise with my GF on what dog breed we get together, and then saying we aren't mature enough for a dog since we can't agree. My 25M girlfriend, 26F, and I have been dating for around 2 years and living together for about 6 months now. While the world has been going crazy due to the whole quarantine thing, we've been doing pretty well, and so we decided to talk about getting a dog. It's been something we've discussed before. I've only ever lived with cats and have always wanted a dog, because I like the idea of having a dog to run and play with and be active with, while my GF only ever had interactions with dogs through her grandmother, who kept a pair of small dogs to keep her company. Now here's the problem. I've always wanted a more active breed. In fact, I would love a breed like a husky. I know they can be a lot of work, but I want a dog I can exercise with. But my GF wants a lap dog like her grandmother had. In fact, she has been talking about getting a Pomeranian. She says she's been in love with them ever since she saw Fran Drescher having one on the nanny. I really do not want a small dog breed, though. I have really zero interest in them. And my GF says she doesn't want a dog that will jump on her and be rowdy if we can't give it all the attention it needs. The issue is, neither of us really don't want to compromise. She wants her small dog, I want an active dog, and we have actually started to fight about it, like just raising our voices, but still, it's probably been more heated than anything we've ever fought about before. She raises some good points. We live in an apartment right now, although there are plenty of parks and dog areas I could take a husky or athletic breed to so he wouldn't be cooped up. And I point out dogs are a 10+ year commitment, and we aren't planning on living in an apartment forever. She tries to argue that we could get her breed first to ease us into owning a dog, and then discuss getting a breed for me in a couple years. But that just feels like she gets what she wants with a maybe. I'll get what I want. Plus, again, I honestly worry if we have a little dog, then an active husky puppy down the road, it could be too rough trying to play with the smaller one. We already have a small dog. A big dog would bully her. I told her at one point if she got a lap dog, then I wouldn't consider it my dog and wouldn't want to be responsible for it, and she got angry, saying I am being immature about it since it was supposed to be our dog. I told her that if neither of us can compromise, then maybe we aren't mature enough in our relationship for a dog then, and she got more angry. Now she's giving me the cold shoulder and talking about going to stay with her parents for a while. But with the quarantine, we might be stuck together and things have just gotten tense. I just feel like if we can't agree on a breed, then if we do get a dog, one of us will be resentful. AITA for refusing to compromise on getting a small dog even though I don't want one? AITA for saying we aren't mature enough to share a dog since we can't agree? Edit. So everyone seems to agree I'm TA for wanting a husky just because they look cool, and I totally see everyone's point in that. I did some research initially, but mostly just searching online for things to know before you get a husky, and lots of husky pictures, LOL. But really, I was not actually prepared, and our apartment is most definitely not ready for one either. I did talk to my GF some. I admitted I was dumb for wanting a husky, but I said I still think we should plan on waiting a couple more months on the dog thing. I did show you some pictures of a Jack Russell Terrier though, since many of you guys have suggested one, and she said, "Aw," so I think that's a good sign. Also mentioned adopting or even dog sitting instead of buying a puppy outright to start. We are not going to be moving forward on the dog right now, but I think we are in a better place. I think we both were just being kind of bullheaded about what we wanted, and me painfully underinformed. Thank you all for being informative fur parents, even the ones who raked me over the coals for wanting a cool husky in my apartment. Haha. Edit 2. So everyone is giving their opinions on their favorite breeds, and what is best for beginners. Even people who originally said Russell Terriers would be a good option. Others are saying they are headstrong and also very energetic. I can't reply to everyone, but I want to thank everyone. We are still going to wait a while, and the suggestion some of you made to take in a dog temporarily through dog sitting is a great idea, but you guys have shown both of us, both me and my GF, that we have a lot more research to do. I really got hung up on wanting what I want, and sort of didn't think it through. There are so many awesome breeds you guys are suggesting. Although the more I hear about everyone talking about rescues, I am really personally leaning towards that, and I'm pretty sure I can get my GF on board as well. Thanks, guys. AITA for telling the police and a private detective where my fiance's sister was hiding out after they came looking for her. The background is this. My fiance's sister had an affair with a married man from her work. She gave him chlamydia, and he gave it to his wife. My fiancé's sister got it treated, but she didn't tell him, and he gave it to his wife, and she ended up in the hospital. My fiancé's sister is also pregnant from the affair. The married man's wife is divorcing him. She is suing my fiancé's sister for something called alienating affections because she had an affair with a man she knew was married. In our state, it is a crime to give your partner with an STI and not tell them. The married guy's wife made a statement to police. Also, fiancé's sister was suspended from her job because she was an assistant manager and the married guy was her employee, and that's against their policy, and there are also sexual harassment issues at play. I know all this because of what my fiancé told me, and also because to save money for the wedding and a house, we are living in the basement apartment until of her parents' home. So, a police officer, a private detective hired by the lawyer for the lawsuit, and someone from her workplace have come here at different times looking for her. She was dodging getting the lawsuit papers and giving a statement to the police. She was telling everyone she went to stay with her parents, but she wasn't really. Way after the visits from them had happened, I heard my fiancé on the phone with her sister. I heard where she was, not in the city anymore. I called the private detective and notified the police. My fiancé is angry at me for giving up her sister's whereabouts. She also told me her parents are being looked at for lying to the police about knowing her sister's location and giving her monetary support. I have no idea about what her parents told the police. I only knew they wanted to talk to her. I don't think I'm the asshole for telling the police and private detective where she was staying. She's an adult and this entire situation is of her own making. My fiancé and her parents and sister by extension are angry at me and think I am the bad guy here. They also blame me for putting stress on her while being pregnant. AITA for not telling my wife my parents were cousins. AITA for never telling my wife that my parents were cousins. My 26-year-old parents have been happily married for 30 years. Neither of them had known they were cousins and found out 2 years into their relationship. Their mothers, who are sisters, had lost contact after each of them ran away at different times from their strict super-religious household. The day they met, it was almost in an instant that both of them knew they were each other's siblings. That day was filled with a lot of chaos and ended up with the breakup of my parents. However, 5 months into the breakup, they both realized they couldn't do it and they got back together. My mother's mom supported them, whereas my father's Mai had not and disowned my father. A year after that, my parents got married and had my sister and I and my other sister. But she's unimportant in this. Just a month ago, my father had passed away from heart complications. It hit my mother really hard and she was absolutely broken. This week we had a tiny funeral, only 10 people for him, and everything was going smooth until his mother showed up. My aunt had brought her along. This created a huge shouting match with my mother, aunt, and grandmother. In this, they disclosed the fact my parents were cousins. My wife looked at me in shock and asked me if that was true. I told her yeah, and she said to wait for a conversation about this when we got home. Well, we got home and she just started crying, saying that it was disgusting that I was a product of incest and how I couldn't have told her and why I didn't trust her. I truly don't believe that my parents' relationship defines me as a person. I've tried to ignore that fact for my whole life, and it was a really uncomfortable topic. I told her that I had the right to keep it to myself, but she just screamed that I didn't, and that what if we had a child and it could have complications because of me, although the chances of that are extremely low. I still stood my ground that it was my right, but my wife just continued to cry as she told me that we were going to take a break. I'm heartbroken because I didn't think that part of me defined me, and to know she was taking a break from me because of that reason really hurt. I talked to my sister about this and she said that I was the asshole and should have told my wife, as she told her husband. She said it's not something I should have hidden, because it was a deal breaker for many. I'm really tired of having my parents' relationship define me as a person, and I don't think I'm the asshole for not telling my wife. I haven't had contact with my wife, but I know that if she were to forgive me, I'd have to apologize, and even though it may sound so petty that I'm putting our relationship on the line, I need to give any apology. I'd like another view on this because my mind's racing. Also throw away because my wife knows my Reddit. Edit. I fully understand that I was in the wrong. This was my wife, I should told her. Keeping this away from her was betrayal of trust. However, my parents being a product of incest was always a sore spot for me. I wrote this in the post, but I exceeded the word limit, therefore I took it off. But when I was high school, this information of my parents leaked. My sister told it to a friend, and in the small town I lived in, it spread like wildfire. I'd get bullied constantly for it, on top of already getting bullied for being small and skinny. The bullying was horrible, and I was hospitalized once from it, broken ribs. That instance emotionally scarred me, and I went through therapy to overcome it. While in therapy, my therapist wanted me to know that my parents didn't define me. Their relationship had nothing to do with me. My parents were their own people, and I was my own person. After those years of therapy, I left with that mentality: why should my parents affect me? So, you guys were right, although I was saying my parents didn't define me. If that was true, I shouldn't have kept it a secret. I knew they defined me, and I was scared of my girlfriend, now wife, leaving me. Perhaps I made it worse withholding this information. I've contacted my wife, but her sister said to give her a couple more days to gather her thoughts. When she does, I will apologize. Thank you for showing me I was in the wrong. Edit. Turns out a couple days means minutes. We're getting divorced. She can't live with the fact her children would be disgusting freaks. AITA for intentionally blindsiding my pregnant roommate to avoid a confrontation. I have been living with my roommate Holly for almost 1.5 years. Holly wasn't a good roommate. I was doing most of the chores. I didn't like her much, but she seemed to think that I was a really good friend of hers. Anytime I tried to talk to her, she would either deflect or give excuses. She told me once that it was my fault because I do it better than her, and she is now not used to doing chores. 6 months ago, she told me that she got pregnant. I was covering half of her rent too because she didn't have any money. I wanted to ask her to move out, but again, she would say something, or give excuses, or start crying, and I would back off. Few months later, situation has got worse for her, quit her job, couldn't find another. We were speaking one day, and she told me how lucky she felt having a friend like me. She thanked me for being so nice about the rent and the food, and she also told me she is not feeling scared about being a single mom, as I would be there to help her. I freaked out hard. Helping out a person when they are in a spot is one thing, but it was clear that she was expecting me to help her even after the baby was born. I didn't want that. Another month passed by. I was making plans to leave. Me and my friend found an apartment to share. On Sep 3, when she wasn't at home, I moved all my things to my new apartment. Since most of the things outside her room was mine, the apartment was pretty bare when I left. I called my landlord and informed him that I won't be renewing my lease, which was ending at the end of Sept. He promised to return my security deposit in full at the end of the month. After that, I left a message to Holly that I have moved out and she has to talk to the landlord about her situation from next month. To be clear, I paid my share of the rent for this month to the landlord and told him to ask Holly about the rest and about making a new security deposit. I refused to attend any more calls from her. Bottom line is I left a 8-9 months pregnant woman who was depending on me for many things, like rent, food, etc., on her own during a pandemic while she was jobless. She had left me multiple voicemails and telling me how I should have talked to her and at least given a heads up instead of just moving out. She told me that she is struggling a lot and she is about to give birth soon and that I need to help her. She is saying that it's shitty of me to help her so much and then abandon her. She told me that she wants to meet me and explain things. She thinks that talking to her would make me move back. I refuse to respond. All my friends have conflicted opinions. Some think I could have just talked to her and resolved it. Some think that I should have at least given her a heads up. Some think I should move back in. Many think that it's not my fault at all. Again, she has 1 month to figure things out with the landlord before the lease ends. I didn't talk to her because it never worked in the past, and I didn't want to be guilt-tripped out of moving. Here for unbiased opinions. AITA.